Let me now welcome our next two speakers who are going to share the insights about transfer of farms in the Netherlands and in Finland. So we have Edwin Weesie. Dr. Edwin Weesie is full professor and chair of the research group Financial Economic Innovation in Utrecht, the Netherlands. He works with entrepreneurs, students, teachers, industry associations, and policymakers on a wide range of contemporary topics such as economic innovation, business models, succession, of course, and finance. Dr. Weesie is an expert on behavioral finance topics, especially in the context of business transfers, stress and coping strategies, exit strategies, valuation, and pricing. He's been a member of Transeo since the early days. He's really a trusted member of Transeo, and I would like really to thank him and to welcome him. And we'll welcome also Meri Remes from Finland. Meri is a young farmers ombudsman in MTK, the Central Union of Agricultural Producers and Forest Owners in Finland. She advocates for young farmers and rural youth. She coordinates Maassedoornjoret, future rural youth activities, and works to strengthen the voice of the next generation in Finland's agricultural and forestry sectors. So they have a complementary vision about the generational renewals in the agricultural sector. It was really great to exchange with them to prepare this session. There are so many things to say about this topic. It's really a big challenge for Europe to guarantee the transfer of farms. And so we have the chance to have those two guest speakers today. Thank you so much. And I think the floor is yours. Edwin, Meri, are you online?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you can share your screen, Edwin, if you like.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
Let's see if this works.
Maybe in full screen.
Yes, here we go. I think it should be okay right now. Can you confirm, Marie, because I can't see you anymore?
I'm there, but it's not in full screen. Yeah, now it's okay. Thank you, okay. Edwin. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the introduction. So I'll leave that, of course, a proud member of Transeo, which is very helpful in all kinds of situations. Today I will focus on the Dutch approach, how we tackle business transfers and succession in the context of agricultural sector. This was initiated by the Ministry of Agriculture in 2019, when they recognized lots of farmers were leaving the country, but also farms were not transferred to another generation, whether it's within the family or not. This has a strategic impact on the country. The Dutch context is, of course, we are a small country with relatively a lot of people, 18 million people on 200 by 300 kilometers. We have 53,000 farms, which are mostly employ very little people, so micro companies mostly. But 50% of the owners are relatively old, approaching 60, and have no idea of who will succeed or they will transfer the company to. But also very important, that it might be different in your country. The average land price, because the country is small and there's lots of people, the land price is high. So per square, per acre, 100 by 100 meters, 70K plus is not an exception. If you have a farm, they usually start with a couple of acres until a couple of 100 acres. These can also be in possession of the farmer, but they can also be leased, of course. And this is where the tension comes. So high land prices, but the average income is average, I would say, 35 to 45 kilo euro, which is an average income. And the tension is, if you want to invest 5 million, 6 million euros, because you have to buy assets and you get a cash flow of income 45, that is a bit of a problem. So the only way to continue this in a sustainable way is to have all kinds of legal loops and tax breaks, basically. So the ministry sees this, which is, so they gave us a question: how can the process be improved in general? And what they did, they wrote out a tender for all universities and advisors in the Netherlands. And 4 of those universities, they were granted research time in the form of a living lab. And that means that you can experiment and see what happens, what works and what does not work. I was part of a program where we had 600,000 euros. Was also co-financed, so you co-finance half, so we paid half of that 600, focusing on people that are side entrants, people that are not active in the market, but want to become a farmer, for example. It could be a huge potential for innovation, for example. So very interesting. Other universities, they focused on what was actually at the moment relative in the ecosystem. So what do we have in the ecosystem, which was another angle. In the future, they will focus, in the next couple of years, they will focus on the female side of agricultural entrepreneurs, because many, there's a gender tension, I would say, where automatically the owner of the farmer thinks of his elder son, and sometimes the daughters are also very capable and able. So the ministry sees this, lots of partners, which is nice, I think. So we have the ministry who provides 50% of the money. We have all kinds of universities who work together. So before this, I did not, well, I knew a couple of people from these universities, but now we call each other daily, which is, I think, a win. And we all have different programs, but we are finding each other. So lots of universities. On the other side, we have the lobby organizations. So we have the young farmers organizations. Young farmers are younger than 35 in the Netherlands, because we also have older farmers organizations, LTO, for example, but also the Association of Agricultural Advisors. They are also involved, or large feed companies, which is interesting, suppliers. And on the other side, and some of them are members, they're also here, they are supplying services to the sector. So we have a part, at least a large part of the ecosystem available. And we are, I think my role is to connect everyone together. Our ministry has certain ideas about agriculture, and the farmers have sometimes other ideas. And I think my role is to be the oil in the engine and speak both languages, so policy language and I would say farming language, so they keep understanding each other, because they're sometimes it's a little bit less not aligned. So how do we do it? Very strong. I am academic, so we did all kinds of research methods to look at it. Mostly action research. So we go there to the farms, we go to the ministries, we do observations, we do workshops, we do focus groups, we have questionnaires, teaching programs, networking events, you name it. And we put it all together, basically. So that's very short. But I think it's nice that we do a mixed methods of all kinds of research. Some of the results, of course, because we send researchers out there, what comes out? A book comes out, a game comes out. For example, it's a game a partner did that in the north of the Netherlands, University of Applied Sciences, Larenstein, van Larenstein, and they made a board game, a little bit like Monopoly. And the nice thing is, if you play this game with, for example, a family and potential successors, even though it's a game, there are questions asked that are never asked on the table when you talk to an advisor, because it's just a game. But nothing is just a game. So by doing in a playful way, we can discuss difficult topics. And you plant a seed, and what we noticed, they developed it a couple of years ago, and now they are playing it with customers, with agricultural successors, for example. And you see that people start to think under the skin a little bit, so a little bit deeper than normal conversation where you can be polite or dodge the question. So that's a nice, I think, a nice example. We also noticed that the transfer process in agriculture is a little bit more complex than in what I was used to in a retail environment, for example, or an industry environment. Why? Because there are many legislation that are changes fast, but also rights of emissions and all kinds of rules that are, that have some tension, I would say. And this is where policy and practice has some tension. For example, some people think we have a nitrogen problem in the Netherlands. But when I ask our ministry and probably our first minister when to explain what nitrogen is, they have no idea. So there is a tension, and of course the farmer knows. The truth is probably in the middle somewhere, but in the Netherlands, for example, they have a rule where you have almost zero emissions, which are acceptable. In Germany, so if you're a farmer on the border, the rules are 10,000 times lighter, literally, on a molecular level, compared to the Netherlands. And of course, that gives some tension. So people move out of the country. It's simple. So they look for opportunity. So we made these problems visible. Also by making teaching programs where they are taught to take over a company. Students can, under the wings of the school, can be taught to take over the company. But we also did a financing part of it. What we see is that many people aspire to be a farmer or an agricultural entrepreneur, and they dream of it. They have a sort of a romantic idea. Also because of Dutch television, there's a couple of programs which is very romantic, where a farmer looks for a wife or something else, and it looks very nice. So people want to become a farmer, but they need a reality check. It's hard work, little money. So we also made a check, including some animations. Yes, you have nice ideas, but can we do a reality check and get the dreamers out, please? Because nobody's waiting. Farmers told us they're not waiting for dreamers. They want people that really want to take over, and not people that have the intention to take over. The intention needs to lead to action. So we made a couple of animations for that. With storyboards on YouTube. We made a couple of books, lots of games. So these are tangible outputs of these programs. But what we found is that in the Netherlands, the ecosystem is vast. I think there's lots of advisors, there's lots of materials, there's lots of training programs, but the problem is, I think I can't see the trees through the wood through the trees. So, and the government also recognized that. So they said, okay, why don't we make a place where all the knowledge comes together? Which is nice, I think. But this is knowledge of business transfers in the agricultural context. So they need one place that comes together, and they just launched it, with also support by the Minister of Agriculture, which is nice. And by the way, our minister was also in this lovely program, romantic program, where she was looking for love and farmer, which is I think nice. And so if you would ask her now, she would join the program, probably not, but 10 years ago she did. But the nice thing is that there's mutual understanding, and the knowledge comes together in one platform. But how do we finance that? Because it's nice to make the platform, but your hours and my hours need to be paid. What we noticed that the universities are the stable factor in this context. I mean, I've been working in the M&A context now for 20 years, mostly the last 14 and 13 years in academic context, but we are still here. What we see in branch organizations or lobby groups, especially the young ones, so the young farmers organization, they are there for 1 year or 2 years and then they leave again and then the knowledge is gone. So what we said, why don't the University of Applied Sciences help the professionals to keep a stable platform where the knowledge is shared? And they will offer, I think the 1st of December, it will open. Of course, now we built it, but now we want it sustainable. So in a multiple years finance to do this, to continue and share the knowledge. So specific Dutch agricultural context. So we made a website out of it. You can search in the process before, during, or after the takeover, contact details of all kinds of people. So all the knowledge comes together. And finally, generational renewal. I think also the European Commission recognizes that we have a challenge in the context of our agricultural ecosystem, where I think we want to grow our own food as much as possible. And if you ask me, a local I prefer local. But if there's no farmers, or they leave the country, or they leave even Europe, and then we lose the knowledge. And I have to say, our current regulation in the Netherlands doesn't make it easier. And also that it fluctuates every half year or year. It's rather stuck. So I hope I can play again oil in the engine. Opportunities for our members of Transeo. I think for professional service providers, for example, when you are a matchmaker, I think there's a large opportunity there. Supply and demand. So there's lots of people that want to become a farmer but don't know where to find one. The other side, sellers are very reluctant to share that they want to sell. So if I look at company for sale, bedrijf te koop, or MKB's or other matchmakers, there's a lot of opportunity there, but they are stubborn. This is a stubborn group of people. They are a little bit, I would say, 15 years ago, retail might have been in the situation that agriculture is now. I think with the new generation, they are more willing to share, but there's lots of opportunity there. Valuation is an opportunity. If you have environmental laws that are changing all the time, valuation is very difficult, so you will not get financing, but there is some tension there. So we need experts on valuation of agricultural properties. And we can also think in alternative ways. People often live at the properties as well, and they want, of course, don't want to leave, but they want to have the money and not want to leave as a tension. So process support, also emotional support. What I see is that if you're a greenhouse farmer, doing tomatoes, tulips, that sort of thing, there's very entrepreneurial group. But it's plants. If there's animals involved, the emotional attachment is different, because the animals have been, maybe the bloodline has been in the family for 50 years, and it's your responsibility to continue. So there is in the process support, there is some tension there, but also opportunity. I also see opportunity for you guys to do business model innovation and diversification. The fact that you do farming in a certain way for 100 years doesn't mean you need to continue, but there's other ways to do it, which might be more profitable. We see all kinds of nice initiatives, local initiatives as well, where local people fund the grounds, for example, or fund the assets. So it's a sort of a crowd lending funding kind of approach. Very useful. And if the local community provide you lending, and you supply them with the food or the stuff that you produce, there's an interaction, and it's locally, and they pick it up also, so it doesn't need to go to shops either. So there's a business model there that needs to be explored, I think. Policymakers, enhance local ecosystem.
Sorry to interrupt. You have like 3 minutes left, if it's okay for you to wrap up.
Perfect. Yeah, this is the last one.
Thanks.
Yeah. So enhanced local ecosystem. Yeah, we have lots of ecosystems. We're doing that with the Raptors project, which is nice. But if you're a policymaker and listening, what you need to give your local people is $1 million a year for 4 to 6 years, I would say. Then you can develop a system like this. If you need to be connected to policymakers, I can connect you to the local ones. Also to, so I can connect you with the names and numbers. And for agricultural entrepreneurs, I don't think they might be in the room. But I think if we co-create together, when policymakers are entering your grounds and feeling really what your company is about, but also lobby groups, and the next speaker will tell about that, I think there's fresh ideas to develop. So we have to do it together, and I hope that the universities can be the linking pin here. So because we are not politically connected, we are neutral as possible, do it in a scientific way. So we connect everyone together. And then I give the ideas of the lobby group to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Edwin. Thanks. Very inspiring. We have our second speaker, Meri Remes. Meri, are you there?
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see how this works today.
From Finland, far away from Belgium, but still there. Thank you so much for your time, for taking the time to prepare this presentation with myself and Edwin. It was a pleasure to get to know you and your work. It's amazing. And I think people are going to be also very interested to learn about what you're doing in Finland. It's a different world, I would say, a different way of working. And it's really the objective of Transio is to learn from other cultures and from other ecosystems. So the floor is yours. You have 20 minutes max. If we want to leave maybe time for questions or one question. So we're looking forward to listening to you, Meri. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I can make a very short recap. We do everything that Professor Weesie was just talking about earlier, but we have different actors doing the things. And that was my 20 minutes. So it's basically a different setup, but what we're doing is a lot of those things that were earlier mentioned, and it's quite easy to sort of look at what was presented here earlier and sort of basically say that's the same situation we're living with here, quite largely. But as said, my name is Meri, and I work for the Central Organization for Forest Owners and Agricultural Producers here in Finland. There are about 900 of us working for the organization, so it's quite a large organization and one that has the ability to retain information, which is quite a privileged position when it comes to lobby organizations or smaller organizations that work with agriculture. We have about 265,000 members, which is a lot for a small country. So it also again provides us with direct access to political processes, but also kind of makes us a partner with everybody. My privilege is to work on everything with everybody. So that's the kind of position that we hold when it comes to agricultural rural questions in Finland. The picture here is a friend of mine in his forest. It's not my forest, and it's interesting to sort of look at the sort of metaphors that Professor Weesie was taking out earlier, because we have both come to a little bit the same conclusion here. Are we seeing the forest, or are we seeing the individual trees, and how do we build up our ecosystems so that they would work better for us? And also, I think this is a good reflection on the timelines. If the agriculture sector is a little bit more foreign to you, the timelines are quite different. And we're talking about, as I said, very small businesses, usually only the family or 1 or 2 employees that are working on the farms. So we're talking about 5 to 10 years for a generational renewal. That's where we're basically working, most of us. And some of us are still incubating our successors. Luckily, that's more diversified nowadays. It's not just the family farms that have their family members become farmers, but also new entrants. But that's about 25 to 30 years to plan that kind of processes then again. And it's not untypical that we make investments for 25 years. So early planning has quite a special role in trying to figure out how are we going to do things in a sustainable way. And of course, it's awesome to listen to your realities coming from my bubble, where my succession or the works that I do today will make a difference in about 40 to 80 years from now. So the time frames are quite crazy, actually, if you're thinking about making investments that are going to be something for my children. I will never see the rewards of the investments that I'm currently making. I'm not making them for myself. And this actually, of course, has a very major impact on agriculture and forestry and the culture around these questions in Finland. Okay, so I already mentioned a little bit that it's quite typically the farming family that we're discussing when it comes to business transfers within agriculture sector. We are, of course, looking forward to getting new entrants, but the realities around that are quite complicated, as we said a little bit about the profitability of the sector and, of course, also the cost of just trying to enter the sector and competing in an environment where everybody else is basically given things. It's quite a complicated environment to enter. And also, I think it's maybe fair to give this sort of, closure around the farming is that it's not very typical that it's positive or seen as positive to have international ownership of land. So this also limits a little bit the sort of where are our investments coming from and all of the thinking around this. And this is not individual to just Finland and our relationship with our difficult neighbor. This is largely something that is shared by young farmers and the farming community within EU. Of course, there's a lot of diversity on that one as well. But one thing that we have a consensus on is that we need more young farmers and we need to encourage entrants and, as said, female farmers as well. And how do we tackle that? And I was really pleased that you're going to take on a specific project on this, Professor Weesie, how do we get more female entrants? So the political frameworks around the sector do differ quite a lot from country to country. And we have been very fortunate in this because we have always had the government with whom we can discuss this. And we have had, if you're looking at the sort of what do we give in exemptions, what do we give in subsidies for young farmers, we have the most support for young farmers within EU. And that has been case since we have been members. I think that's one of the reasons why we have been able to retain a relatively low average age, although that has been changing. So, as mentioned earlier, the Commission has published a generational renewal strategy. In it, we see a lot of old tools making a comeback, and we do celebrate this. Finally, about 2 decades of setbacks, we are seeing the return of measures that we had in place and that were effective. These measures, when we had them, gave us the youngest farmer population in EU, which is quite remarkable if you think about the sort of demographics in Finland and the alternatives and all of the questions surrounding this. If you're looking at us and compare us then to, for example, Sweden, we were doing quite a lot better. So most of these measures are along the lines of acknowledging the role of the current owner in generational renewals, whether that is then in sticks or carrots. And this is something that the Commission has been unwilling to support until now, at least until to this degree. And I think it's very important to acknowledge at this point that we are going in the right direction there. And also nationally, we are going in the more sort of improved direction when it comes to the number of farm generational renewals. There was a little bit of a build-up. People were waiting and sort of insecure about the future. So there was a gap for a couple of years. And because these measures that ended, we were rapidly seeing an increase in the age of our farmers. So this is what I work with. So as said, Edwin earlier talked about how complicated we sometimes make things. We are very good at making complicated things here. I think we sometimes feel that it's our speciality. That partially comes from actually the sector making a difference, the sector mattering to a lot of people. And of course, we're talking about clean food and things like that. Safety and questions around it. But for us as an organization, this generational renewal questions is not something that is a project work. It is part of our core values and what we do. Our job is to sort of water this tree and give it sort of maybe a little bit of a direction or change the culture of generational renewals when it comes to agriculture and forestry. We contribute annually as an organization about €500,000 towards research. That's mostly about the structure of agriculture and different questions, but that's the tradition there. And also about €0.7 million into project work, which is then locally and regionally quite often realized. We don't tend to do project work in the Central Union. But of course, because the nature of the business is that it is over-generational, questions about this are always present at the business, whether that is ongoing or current or thinking about the next one, or is it part of your exit strategy, whatever. It's always present in the business. And so everybody who works within our organization will have to deal with generational renewal questions in one way or another. So we have quite a long history. Our organization is more than 100 years old, and we have been talking about generational renewal, GRs, sukupolvenvaihdos in Finnish, for about 60 years now, and a little bit longer than that in terms of generational renewal legislation. But what we have spent the majority of our time talking about is the tradition for discussion on money, production, subsidies, taxation, asset transfer, insurances. To do things quite often as well. But we can, of course, there are a lot of big decisions around these linear processes that are not linear. But that's where we basically have a lot of legislation, procedures, and words for things. But also quite a lot of specialists that focus on very specific questions and that kind of have a little bit of an ownership of the know-how. And also within this narrative of these linear discussions, family farms tend to sort of forget the current owners. And sometimes even if you discuss this with specialists, they are a little bit seen as a problem, not to put too much of a bad waste on it, but some say that they are even nuclear waste in these discussions. And there is no future in this discussion for them. And also what is quite typical in this linear type of process is that we spend, you hear this sentence, this is very important. You say it in the beginning of the event or at the consultation, but then you spend 5 minutes of your time talking about it, or 5% of the time talking about the very important part. And that is the black box of generational renewals when it comes to consultation processes quite often. That is the so-called homework. Family matters, the things that are very difficult and fussy to discuss. So where we are slowly moving towards is the same things that Professor Remes brought up earlier here, is that we are trying to focus on facilitated circular processes that have an eye on preventing social conflicts, basically human misery. That's what we're seeing a lot of when it comes to the generational renewals, when we're not being able to tackle the black box. And we also need to acknowledge a couple of things along the process as specialists, is that the quality and the start of the process is largely controlled by the current owners. So they need to have a better story. We need to face them and meet them on a better platform. There's also an inherent goodwill requirement in the business. There are no generational renewals, or let's say close to zero generational renewals or farm transfers that are happening in sort of a transactional nature, which means that they would be sold at market value and they would need this goodwill from either the siblings or the current owners. And also, of course, the sort of length of the process is started by a person, and then you need to be able to loop into them at some point. And this takes several discussions about the same questions. We're also seeing what is changing now is that our funders are trying to and wanting the new owners to work on the farm for a number of years before the generational renewal. This is also extending the periods of times that we are spending on the process, which is in part also very positive. So this is what I said that it's our responsibility to push the culture in one way or another. And so this is what we're currently working with quite a lot. So we're trying to dismantle the culture of silence on different levels. For a Finnish person, I do talk a lot. And we do have this sort of lack of discussion culture as well in Finland. But we jump over to our neighbor Sweden. And if you've ever been to Sweden, they are very good at this. They talk endlessly about everything. And they are very good at talking about interpersonal questions. And they have done this survey a while ago where they, instead of focusing on the structure of agriculture, which is our typical way of looking at development, they focused on the people who have the potential to become farmers and asked them, what are your major obstacles? So we tend to focus on current and future owners of farms, but they focused on the people who could potentially be that instead, reaching out through the family farms. and also institutions and schools and whatnot. And their conclusion was that about 15% don't know how to start the discussion within the family. 31% don't want to open the discussion because they are afraid of the fallout that is going to come out of it. And 37% of the current are afraid that the current owner isn't in any kind of way able to participate in this discussion. So they have a dominant position on the family, and they are not capable of sort of reaching out and starting this process. So we have, out of the potential future farmers, almost 80% struggle to start a discussion about generational renewals. And I think that's not a small issue. So if we leave these people in the black box alone and say this is really important, but basically we don't discuss it as a part of the process, then we're saying, okay, that's another holdup. Okay, that's another discussion that may not never be opened before the current owners are possibly dead, deceased. So we are in a position where that is their current situation as well when it comes to particularly forest ownership. Okay, so Professor Weesie named one tool here, which was the game to open up this type of family discussions. We, of course, have a lot of different ones and processes and when it comes to that one. I really love the idea of the game. We have a few of those as well. And we actually copied one from Nike that we had access to, which was really cool to try out it on. But I think once you get Finnish people to talk about their feelings, you need to go really deep. So that's also, there are these cultural differences we need to make adaptations to. We're also using tools like mediation that is more commonly maybe used in legal or inter-family discussions or legal fights. So that's one of the tools that we are using as part of how do we enter and discuss these questions. So the next one we are asking our specialists and in relationship to their clients to change the way they're doing things. So process ownership and opening up about the limitations of the services that they're providing. So not trying to own their clients' problems, also speaking an understandable language so that the client won't have to live with the results for 1 to 2 generations of something that they didn't really understand what was the matter of. And this might seem very basic, but at the sort of rate where you have very specialist questions, very specialist ideas, and then you come into the conversation where you never really heard about that even in the first place. So it's very easy for the specialist to sort of claim ownership of the process and kind of obliterate a lot of other questions around it. So we are working towards having our clients, the farmers, know what the process is about, so kind of broadening the view, and at the same time working with the specialists on how do we acknowledge this power imbalance between you and your client. So between the facilitators then, or specialists, we are working towards having shared processes. That means that it's not just your process, but it's a little bit more of a group that work together so that you can provide the client with what they need. But this, of course, requires trust and networks, and it doesn't happen by building a box where you say and name people. These are the people who are working with this in this region. That doesn't work. What we need is to have interpersonal relationships between these actors who are then able to recognize the people that you can trust. Okay, so it's a win-win.
Sorry to interrupt. You have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
I know it's difficult, but yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that was between the specialist, and the last bit is about the officials. So this is also something that is an increasing problem because the frequency of dealing with agriculture questions is decreasing. And we see a lack of know-how in the officials, but also their inability to have a sort of safe space to discuss this in advance so that the farmers who are facing the complexity when they come and ask, what does this mean in my farm? They don't have to evade the questions, which is a little bit at the moment the problem. So we are providing these officials or the local communities with this kind of broader networks. Okay. So the next to last, why does it all matter? Why do we work so much with this? Is of course that we want to see generational renewals as opportunities for creating something better for everyone, not something that just needs to get done. Typically, we're making lifelong decisions, and these lifelong decisions might not just affect one generation, they might be 2 generations that are involved in these discussions. Building linear processes and very specific ones, sort of like out of sort of the whole messy situation family type, tends to be quite low in resilience. and it kind of forgets that it's largely built up on the goodwill of other people around it. Okay, that's enough. So then, and I think also the other side of this is that farming is a tough and rather lonely business. And at the end of the process that we create here, we are responsible to our clients, we are responsible to our members, and the process needs to be such that it's making them able to share the same Christmas table. It's making them have a community and family to support you at the end of that process. And also, of course, when we're talking about the national level importance of the success ratio here is that we have very long careers in farming, and these farms are supporting a lot of other careers around them, a lot of long existing jobs, ecosystem services and all of that. And about 90% of Finland is rural. Recognized, actually it's 92% if I'm correct on that one. And also it's basically about societal stability. We all need to eat, we all need energy, we all need to sort these kind of things out. But in our case, it's a little bit in a sinister side. It's also about border security. And it's also about societal resilience in times of all different catastrophes or crises. Farms have capable people that have equipment, not just like office rats, but people who know how to do things in real life. But what I want to say here is that we are on the right path here. But what we're doing is not very easy. We're asking a lot of different people. We are asking our farmers to accept help and mediation and overcome generations of tradition and social norms. We're asking our specialists to relinquish their position of power and admit to their limits. And we're asking our officials to redefine their responsibilities. So we're asking a lot from everybody, but we are on the right path. And these are quite easy things actually to solve. Particularly if you look at the other things that are wrong in the market or in the situation. So it's our responsibility to solve what is quite easily within our own hands. And I think we are on the right path, but it's just taking a little bit of birthing problems and pains for change.
Thank you so much, Meri. It was really nice to have insights about Finland. Thank you so much. Are there comments or questions briefly for two guest speakers about transfers of farms? You can raise your hands. Maybe in the chat or no. Would you like, Edwin, a last word or Meri? No, it's okay. I think it was clear. We will share, of course, all the presentations, and yeah, maybe we'll have extra sessions about this topic because it's becoming a real challenge for all European countries. So thank you so much again for your time, Meri and Edwin. Thank you.